He had displayed great tact, foresight, and finesse. Alone, he had met every situation and shaped events to suit his purpose, showing remarkable patience, caution, and moderation. Thus is a description of one of the greatest presidents of our time. Rising to presidency as the 26th President of the United States in March of 1901, Theodore Roosevelt immediately began to construct a legacy that would transcend into the foreign policies of multiple presidents to come. As a Republican and progressive president, Roosevelt continually made himself famous as a historian, naturalist, hunter, soldier, and tremendous political leader. His ideals lay primarily in his big stick policy in every aspect of his presidency.
While on one of his many numerous expeditions in Africa, Teddy heard an ancient African proverb which stated, "Speak softly and carry a big stick, and you will go far." He interpreted this to mean that diplomacy must be the primary approach. Teddy knew, however, that diplomacy does not always work out as planned. In such situations, Teddy knew that physical force or violence was necessary. For Teddy, this confrontation came in the form of naval battle, which was his big stick, due to his primary position as Assistant Secretary to the Navy and his love for the Navy. Teddy introduced the big stick ideology by implementing the Roosevelt Corollary in 1904. This addition to the Monroe Doctrine stated the United States would intervene in the event of any instability in the Western Hemisphere in the form of a conflict between European powers and Latin countries. This diplomatic approach was used to further improve the protection of the United States citizens.
Roosevelt enforced the big stick portion of this foreign policy in his attempt to create the Panama Canal. Alfred Mahan, an expert on imperialism, had previously insisted on finding a way to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans in the form of a transcontinental canal. On January 22, 1903, John Hay met with representation from Colombia, the site of the future canal, and drew up the Hay-Huron Treaty. This treaty was the United States' first attempt at gaining access to the land in Panama to construct this canal. The treaty granted the United States 6 miles of land for $250,000 a year, with $10 million paid up front. After the Colombians further discussed this treaty, the Colombian Congress decided that they wanted more money than originally drawn up in this treaty. Naturally, Roosevelt was aggravated with the sudden Colombian change of mind, and Teddy turned to other methods of gaining this small stretch of land. He began to implement his big stick policy. He turned to the Panamanians and secretly organized a Panamanian revolt against Colombia. For years, the Panamanians had desperately sought independence from the Colombians. However, all their efforts were in vain because they were so powerless compared to Colombia. On the morning of November 3, 1903, there just happened to be numerous U.S. ships in the waters near Colombia. This hindered the Colombian Navy's attempt to quell the Panamanian revolt. As a result, Panama gained independence from Colombia and signed the Hay-Bonneau-Varilla Treaty with the United States, in which the U.S. agreed to pay $10 million outright and $250,000 a year for 10 miles of land, 4 more than they were originally going to receive. Yet again, Teddy's big stick policy aided the United States in attaining what she desired.
During the coal strike of 1902, when the miners refused to work until they received a 20% raise, a 9-hour workday, the elimination of the swing shift, and union recognition, Roosevelt enforced his big stick policy. He threatened to seize the mines and dig coal with federal troops so that miners and the mine owners would not make a profit while it was under the government's control. As a result, the miners and the owners traveled to D.C. to negotiate. Teddy once again was successful in his use of diplomacy to solve a conflict. After a compromise was reached, the miners received a 10% raise and a 9-hour workday, but they did not get the recognition of a union. By threatening to use the big stick policy, President Roosevelt successfully resolved the coal miners' strike.
Consequently, Roosevelt had increased the power of the president by creating a country to build a canal, and Congress did nothing to stop him. Teddy transferred this power to his domestic policy, where he maintained his big stick ideals of diplomacy first, and to follow with force only when necessary. Teddy's domestic policy was primarily in the form of the square deal. One aspect of this was his keen ability to differentiate between good and bad trusts, and bust the bad ones. By dangling a carrot in front of good trusts and busting the bad trusts, Teddy showed the world that his big stick policy could be interpreted in various ways. He used a method to threaten all the trusts and restrain them. But when some of them still carried on with bad commerce that hurt the consumers, Teddy broke out the big stick in the form of lawsuits, as he did with the Northern Securities Company. He broke the railroad monopoly up into 4 sections in order to help the consumers, once again proving that he was not afraid to use force.
As our 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt set several precedents. Among his innovative policies was the Big Stick policy. Although this was primarily his approach to foreign conflicts, Teddy also applied this principle to domestic dilemmas. Roosevelt proved to the world that his style in foreign affairs was effective through the construction of the Panama Canal. This monumental structure was successfully completed under Teddy, and its effects are still felt today. Furthermore, by negotiating a coal mine strike, Teddy showed his unapproval for the extremes of labor. Or by thus, no, thus. Yeah. Thus, Theodore Roosevelt was an extremely significant figure in history, and his contributions to the American government and the American people shall never be forgotten.